The set and sci-fi novel that I chose to read for this project is I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. And here we go. I, Robot is a series of stories written in the 1940s, but takes place from 1998 all the way up until 2064, where a robot psychologist named Dr. Susan Calvin is being interviewed. Dr. Calvin worked with the company for most of her life's upwards of 50 years called U.S. Robotics and Mechanics Incorporated. During her time with the company, her sole purpose for each and every robot that were to come out was to make it seem as human as possible. In this interview, Susan Calvin goes through her life with different scenarios and times and tells stories with how different human beings and different robots have interacted with each other according to the three laws set into place at the beginning of robotic existence. Although Calvin is being interviewed, these stories are not told from her perspective, they are told from another perspective within the mini story within the novel. The three fundamental laws of robotics are: 1. A robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law. 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. Asimov, such as many science fiction writers, had a vision, even in the 1940s, that a human race would one day create and coexist with one of a robotic species. And just as most science fiction novelists, some of his predictions are right, and could be right in the near future. Now, on the other side, most of his predictions are completely and utterly wrong. The short stories go from the simplest robots that cannot speak and are used as toys to occupy our children, to robots being so well engineered and fit the first law that they think they may know what's best for all of humanity better than the four regional coordinators of the world. Books of this sort are here to make people like us think. Susan Calvin gives us scenarios. Each short story allows us to ponder and take into account how each of us would react if we were to have been in the same position as the characters in the stories. There are several themes that we discussed in class that are very apparent in not only the book as a whole, but the short stories within the book as well. The main themes that seemed most apparent for this class were fear of technology, singularity, what makes us human, and robotic love and consciousness. Fear of technology showed a lot in the first story through Gloria's mother, Grace. The story takes place in 1998, where Gloria's father had purchased a nursemaid robot called Robbie for her. In this story, the first few years of having Robbie, everything is great. Robbie cannot speak, but he communicates to Gloria and others through body language and hand motions. The robot was bought to take pressure off the parents' hands and always allowing Gloria someone to talk to and someone to play with. Grace decides after 2 years of Gloria having Robbie that they should get rid of it. Grace told her husband that she doesn't want her daughter entrusted to a machine. She said that it had no soul and that the child isn't meant to be guarded by a thing of metal. Grace started to get scared of things that could happen if the malfunction were to happen and that it would be out of her control. The parents get rid of it, but weeks later they end up going to a factory to ease the sadness of Gloria. Gloria almost gets killed, but Robbie ends up being in the factory and saves her life. Robbie was able to act faster than any of the humans, and Grace allowed Robbie to be back in the house. Fear of technology is not an unusual feeling. We fear what we don't know much about, and the more we know, the less we fear because the more we will be able to understand the capabilities of the technology at hand. The scene you guys are about to watch is the first actual conversation between the robot Sonny and Detective Spooner, and listen to the way he addresses the man who created him during the first couple of seconds and how he becomes a little upset after Detective Spooner corrects him.
My father tried to teach me human emotions. They are difficult.
You mean you're a designer?
Yes.
Sonny calls his creator father, which is the term of love and endearment towards him, which is not a trait of a typical robot that the company produces. He then becomes a little upset after Detective Spooner corrects him, which is also another trait that Sonny should not have.
Want to explain why you were hiding at the crime scene?
I was frightened.
Sonny just expressed that he was frightened to Detective Spooner. Robots feeling emotion? This is getting a little out of hand.
Robots don't feel fear. They don't feel anything.
Well said, Detective. Or at least the rest of us could think so, right?
They don't get hungry. They don't sleep.
I do. I have even had dreams.
Human beings have dreams. Even dogs have dreams, but not you. You are just a machine. An imitation of life. Can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
Can you?
As we discussed in class, all the things that Detective Spooner said were things that we said that defined being human. We said having free will, dreaming, capability of creating music, the ability to reason, and having a sense of our surrounding conscious decisions were all things that made us human. But then we think about what Sonny said at the end: can you? And for many of us, that is alarming because I know I'm a human, but I don't have the artistic ability to be able to draw or even to create musical works of art. But I'm human, aren't I? This conversation forces us to go back to the Turing test and to be able to test in blind conversation whether or not a computer or a robot is human or not. In this situation, if Sonny did not look like a robot, to me, I could not look him in the eyes and truly be able to tell. This simulation of a sense of consciousness within the robot is very scary and very human.
Humorous. Shoulder. 1, 2, a lung.
USR Cybernetics Program.
For wounded cops.
The scene you just watched is one of the biggest showings of singularity that I could see happening in our lifetimes that is seen in the book and in the movie. This vision by Gray Kurzweil is seen to be on its way soon, and the thought that it will become in ways like this may not be too far off. With the way we are be able to engineer different prosthetics, etc., we are going to be able to soon replace and have mechanically run organs. The moment when artificial intelligence and machinery are equal to and then exceed human intellect will be the moment when we meet singularity, and even though Asimov sees it happening, I disagree.
Save her! Save the girl!
But I must apply the nanite.
Sonny, save Calvin!
In this scene, Sonny is faced with the decision to listen to Detective Spooner as his friend, whether or not to save Dr. Calvin or to save all of humanity. If Sonny were a normal robot, there would be no question what his actions would be. But we will roll this clip and find out what happens. As you can see, Sonny ends up saving Dr. Calvin and having human trust that Detective Spooner would lay his life on the line to save all of humanity. The whole point of this is to show that maybe through these random segments of code and artificial learning ability that these two mediums could link together to simulate something similar to a stream of consciousness, and this allowed Sonny to break from the three laws. By Sonny having the ability to break from the three laws as a robot, it allows him to have free thought and the ability to create his own morals and to act on them. He believed that saving Dr. Calvin, just as Spooner said, was the morally right thing to do, so he acted accordingly.